Hey there, everybody. Pete here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the Monsters Den. And in the co-captain's chair, as always, Mr. Chris Allo. What's going on, my friend?
What's going on, Pete? Thanks for having me as always.
Wouldn't be the Monsters Den without you, my friend.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
So today is, I guess, a sequel to a show we did a couple weeks ago, where it was all about the ladies of horror, the scream queens and the starlets, right? That was a fun episode to do. Well, we got to give some props to the guys, right? So today we're going to talk about the horror icons, those male actors that appeared in all sorts of roles, lots of classic movies. We've seen them plenty over the years. Could be guys from the 30s, 40s, 50s, or the 60s, 70s, 80s, or more recent, doesn't matter. We're looking at the whole spectrum here. So we've each picked out our 10 favorites, or at least is 10 that we can possibly think of, right? I'm sure there's more that we kind of missed out on.
Oh, for sure.
We're each going to talk about our favorite role or movie that they're in. So I'll have Chris kick us off with his number 10.
Okay, cool. Yep. I was saying to Pete before we started, I got my 10, and this time it was just 10. I didn't pull a Catino and put 11, and I kind of ranked them. There was like actually 5 that I have met over the years at the convention circuit, and the other 5 who I never met. But to be honest, the other 5 I never met I think are probably a little more legendary because I never met them, but also because they're just, legendary. So I'm starting at number 10, a guy who has an incredible filmography, Suspiria, Mark of the Devil, Blood for Dracula, Flesh for Frankenstein, Grindhouse. He's even in the last Puppet Master movie, Udo Kier, who I think I will watch anything he's in. He's got such a crazy, unique look. It's such an amazing career that this guy started in like the late 60s or early 70s, and he's still making movies today.
I know. And he's got a really unique look.
Just that unique look is just crazy. I remember when I met him at Chiller Theater, I had him sign an 8x10 of Flesh for Frankenstein. So I went up to him and I was like, can you sign a quote for me? And he was like, sure, which one? And I was like, to know life is to fuck death in the gallbladder. And he was like, oh, of course. I'm like, I'm gonna go, that's the quote, right? I mean, I don't know, I might have just fucked it up right now, but yeah, he loved it. So I got that. I got to frame it and stick it up on the wall in the garage. But that was he was super cool, and man, what a filmography! All these guys. I mean, once you start listing them out, I'm like, Jesus,
the movies,
unbelievable.
Yeah, big time. And again, we were talking before we went on camera here, and Chris was talking about how he had met a few of his, and I'm looking at my list, I'm like, well, shit, 75% of mine have been dead forever, for a long time, so there's really no chance. So, but this guy is still around, and you know what? I've probably seen him at a Chiller Theater before because he makes the rounds on the circuit quite a bit, and I've been to a lot of those shows over the years. But my number 10 is going to be Tom Atkins.
Oh, sure.
Otherwise known as God Among Men, right?
Yeah, that's true.
We heard that all weekend when we were at
the Exhumed show. Yeah.
Yeah, recently, right? Because Tom has been in a ton of great films. I was sitting there, God, which one do I pick as my number 1 from him? And it was either between The Fog or Night of the Creeps, which I ultimately went with Night of the Creeps. But he's done so many good ones.
So many good ones.
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I mean,
yeah.
Been in a ton of them, but I really like him in Night of the Creeps. He plays just a really cool badass cop in here who's got all sorts of issues and stuff, and he tends to play characters like that quite a bit. But Tom is like always dependable. Every film he's in, he does a really good job, and I think we got really used to seeing him throughout the 80s and the early 90s in so many films. So Tom Atkins, my number 10.
Which, ironically enough, my number 9 is Tom Atkins. I was going to say, yeah, I didn't put a particular favorite, but my list was Creepshow, The Fog, Halloween 3, Night of the Creeps, and the remake, My Bloody Valentine, which was a cool surprise that he was in. And yeah, he plays the babyface most of the time, but man, he was a great heel in the wraparound segments in Creepshow as the bad father. But yeah, just always knocks it out of the park. Night of the Creeps, probably his his finest moment. I mean, he's great in Halloween 3, but that is still such a strange movie overall. But Night of the Creeps is just so much fun.
Yeah, he is really good in Halloween 3, Season of the
Oh
Witch.
yeah.
And he plays the leading man and gets the hot babe in it, right? Which is kind of
Oh,
weird.
totally.
Kind of.
I always laugh too with the fog. Like he hooks up with a hot young Jamie Lee Curtis. Like, get out of here. This is totally a movie.
Yeah, exactly. Good for him, though, right? You know?
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
All right, so now I'm going to go way back to a guy that
And yeah, you must have met him because I met him at a chiller.
I had to have, right?
I was gonna say, Pete, you must have met him at a show because yeah,
I had to have. I mean, it's just
you must have.
he was at so many of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I had him sign. God, I can't think of their names now because I got the olds. I used to know I could remember everything. But they did a reunion of Creep Show, so they had Rusty and the from the second Rusty from National Lampoon's Vacation and the girl from Night of the Creeps. So they had the three leads, and I had them all sign a Night of the Creeps poster, which I have somewhere. I don't know what the hell I did with it, but I got it somewhere.
It's around. It's around.
It's around. Yeah, it's in a tube somewhere.
My next guy, this dude, this is an older guy, right? So we're talking, 20s, 30s, 40s, where he made his mark. And he generally played in most of the films, he played like co-star. He was like a co-star. He always played like the burgomaster or, policeman or the mad scientist assistant. But on occasion, he got a starring role and he played the mad scientist, and he always did a really, really good job. And it's Lionel Atwill. All right. Okay. Awesome guy. And the film I picked for my favorite was Man-Made Monster, ironically also co-starring Lon Chaney Jr., which was his big, first horror film. But here's Lionel right there. If you guys can
I don't think I ever saw that.
Oh, really?
Oh, I don't think so.
This is when they take Chaney and they make him like this crazy electric man.
Oh, I know the one you're talking about, but I still don't think I've ever seen it.
No, it's a good one.
All right, I'll have to look, have to watch that one for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a good one. And he also was great in Mystery of the Wax Museum, which was the original. So the Vincent Price classic was based on this particular one. He plays the mad scientist, the Wax Museum owner in that too.
But didn't he do some of the Sherlock Holmes?
Yes, he did. Yep. Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did a lot of stuff. I mean, Lionel Atwill was in almost every Universal film, whether it be horror or mystery or whatever. He was everywhere. Really, just a really good supporting player. But he had when they gave him lead roles, he ran with it and did it really. I believe he was also in. Forgetting the name of it. There was another movie about the bats, some kind of the vampire bat, something like that. He was in that as well. But yeah, really, really good actor. Just always dependable in so many movies. But he's always been one of my favorites. Just really, really good actor. So that's my number 9.
Nice. All right, that's a classic. My number 8, guy that's been around since the 70s. I will never forget his opening line in the movie Eaten Alive. He was also in V, the TV series, Galaxy of Terror, Dead and Buried, and of course the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And a lot of people forget the Freddy's Dead TV show. Of course, Robert Englund, who he's definitely, to me, he's like the modern day sort of Vincent Price or Christopher Lee, just a guy so associated with horror and who does such a great job.
Yeah.
And so, unashamed to be like, yeah, I'm the horror guy. So what?
He's made a career on it, right? So.
That's it. I met him at there used to be this convention series in New Jersey, and it was like half rock and half horror. And I remember they had Wasp. They booked Wasp to play it, and they had Bruce Kulick from Kiss was a guest, but they also had Elvira and Robert Englund. I remember meeting Robert Englund at that show. That was a long time ago. But he's another one. Robert Englund always doing the circuit, but he's a lot more money now than he used to be.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. It's a great pick. He actually was my number 11.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, you can't include everybody, right?
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. My number, what are we up to? 8?
Yes.
Number 8 for me is a guy that probably hasn't been in as many movies as some of these other guys we're going to talk about. Well, he's been in a lot of movies, but not as many horror films. But the horror films he has been in are pretty great. And he's just, I mean, he's like one of the icons of the last like probably 35 years or so. Bruce Campbell. And I mean, man, Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2. I think Evil Dead 2, I know you're not a big fan of that film, but that's his tour de force. I mean, Evil Dead, I mean, all him. And it's just crazy. And he's one of those guys that I always wish was in more films. You know, Ash obviously was his big kind of claim to fame. That was his big role, but in the 3 Evil Dead films and the series and whatnot. But yeah, just he has a way with kind of he can do comedy as well. And I think he just really fits really well into this genre, into the more like kind of the humorous side of horror, because none of his roles I think are really straight. He never plays like a straight role. He's always got that little comedic edge, and I think he does so well. But he's been one of the icons for the last 30 plus years, and I really wanted to include him here because man, he's just so good in these films. So Bruce Campbell, my next choice.
He was probably at my number 11 because I was like, all right, I love Evil Dead 1. I'm lukewarm on 2 and 3. I loved Ash versus the Evil Dead. I love the first 2 Maniac Cop movies.
Yeah.
But I'm like, all right. After
like
that,
Bubba Hotep? What'd you think of Bubba Hotep?
I never really liked Bubba Hotep. I know people love it, but I never really connected with me. Yeah. So that's why I was like, because I had him on the list, and then once I started going through the filmographies of everybody else, he just got bumped down.
Yeah,
but great guy, and yeah. Talk about comedic. I mean, I saw him once at a convention promoting Army of Darkness, like a year before it came out, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was at a Fangoria convention. He walked out on stage in front of 2,000 screaming fans, and he did the part where he hit himself on the back of the head, and he did a flip and landed on his back on the stage, and everybody went nuts, myself included. But I remember just going, "Holy shit! Like that's crazy."
He could have hurt himself, right? Yeah.
Well, I just was thinking, Jesus, how's this guy's back going to be when he's 50? Because I mean, I'm going back, 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that was probably the most impressive thing I saw any of these horror movie people do at a convention. I was like,
that is pretty wild. That's pretty. Yeah. Like, I guess he did his own stunt in the film then.
Yeah, I would imagine if he could do that live on stage. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's missed mine. But my number, I guess this is number 7. It's a guy I know you like, Pete. I already mentioned the Nightmare on Elm Street series. This guy was in the best ones, which was 1, 3, and A New Nightmare. Of course, he also starred in such classics like Enter the Dragon, Black Christmas, Blood Beach, Invasion of the Flesh Hunters, and one of Dario Argento's best, Tenebrae. Of course, I'm talking about the handsome and rugged John Saxon, who I got to meet at a Fango show, and he was just super, super cool.
Yeah, that's a great choice. I completely forgot about him. As soon as you started naming the films, I'm like, oh, fuck, yeah.
I thought you might have him because of Black Christmas.
Yeah, I didn't even think of him. Yeah. That's a great choice. He's been in so many films.
So many. And I'm sure there's stuff I forgot, but I was just, scanning through the filmography, just writing down the ones that are really, really. I'm like, oh my god! I'm like, that's a hell of a list.
Yeah. He's done quite a bit. That's a great choice. Yeah, that's an oversight on my part. You know what? I think about it now. I would have put him over Bruce Campbell.
Well, and that was my thinking. Like, okay, Bruce Campbell looked at Evil Dead, the Maniac Cops, but.
It's the big resume versus those couple one role, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
That's cool. All right, this next guy, I couldn't leave off this list. In fact, at Exhumed 2 weeks ago, right? 2 weeks ago, last weekend. When was it?
Yeah, it was 2 weeks ago we went.
The very last film of the festival had a good supporting role from this guy, and I think he kind of stole the film. And he kind of steals every film that he's in. I think you know who I'm talking about. Absolutely. And I was looking at all his roles, and I'm like, all right, God, which is my favorite? It's like, I think another film I like a little more than this one, but this is his tour de force. And of course, it's Jeffrey Combs, Reanimator, Edges Out, From Beyond. He's great in From Beyond too.
Yeah,
I think this is just like this is what put him on the map. And this is still like, this is his film. You know, definitely his film. But yeah, well, The Frighteners is what I was talking about before for everybody watching. So that's kind of a fun film.
I completely forgot he was in that.
I didn't know he was in it either, right? He plays the kind of scumbag FBI guy in the film, and he's great in it. You know, he's only in it like for like, you know, the movie's like 2 hours. He's probably got like maybe 25 minutes of screen time, if that. But every scene he's in, he's such a scumbag in the film, and you know, he steals every scene. But yeah, he's awesome. You know, whether you're talking about this or From Beyond, or God, he's done so many other films. I'm like, he's done a lot of Stuart Gordon. Yeah, just really, really great actor, and he still pops up.
Absolutely. I was gonna say that's a great pick. Yeah, he was on the list and then just got edged out, like kind of like Bruce Campbell. But yeah, great pick.
Yeah.
My next guy, another guy I met at one of the Chiller shows, who was just super cool, and again, a guy that's got a great resume. He was in one of my all-time favorite movies, Aliens, and the sequel Alien 3, also Alien vs. Predator, plus Piranha 2, Terminator, Near Dark, and one of my all-time favorites, which it still kills me, I didn't put in my top 10 all-time favorite horror movies, was Pumpkinhead, which I just think is one of those just unbelievable classics.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm talking Lance Henriksen, who was just a super nicest guy when me and the missus met him a couple of years ago. I mean, I thought he was going to come home with us. He was just so nice and so friendly, and just answering questions, and just generally one of those guys you could tell just was happy to be at a convention and meeting people and signing autographs. But yeah, I think he's awesome, and he's one of those guys I'll watch anything he's in.
Cool. Yeah, that's a great pick. Another guy that should have been on my list. He's awesome. So many great films. I was like, God, what is my favorite role? He's so good in Near Dark.
Oh, Near Dark is amazing. And that's what I had him sign, was a picture from Near Dark.
Yeah, he's really, I mean, yeah, he's so good in that film, but I don't know, Pumpkinhead might be my favorite.
Pumpkinhead is such a tearjerker. I mean, when his son gets killed, I'm always fighting back the tears. I think they do such a good job of building it up, and then, you know, killing the little boy so he can get his revenge.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, so many good ones. And even Piranha 2, which is the movie that I always didn't like, because every time I saw it on home video, it was very dark and it was crappy. You couldn't see the flying fish. You couldn't see them. So this movie sucks. But I saw it on an Exhumed show a few years ago, you know, seeing it projected on the big screen. You could finally see the flying fish. I mean, which is so stupid, but so much fun.
Yeah. And he's great in Pit and the Pendulum too.
Yes, which is so funny because I can see it behind your shoulder.
I just saw it recently. Yeah, I just picked it up not long ago. There it is. Yeah. Really good in that. So yeah,
he was great as Torquemada, and that's a great pick.
All right, next up, going to go way back. I mean, this guy is an absolute icon, and I couldn't tell you which is my favorite film of his or his favorite role. I think I kind of know which one, but it's this guy, Vincent Price. Got to be on my list. He's awesome. He's done a million freaking movies. I'm going to go with Witchfinder General, but man, you can go with The Pit and the Pendulum. You can go with The Abominable Dr. Phibes. You can go with Mask of the Red Death, Fall of the House of Usher. I mean, all of some of his best in this collection right here. It's just
so good.
He's just amazing. And there was nobody like him. He just had such a unique style of acting, and his voice and the way he carried himself and the look. I mean, there's only one Vincent Price. And so, yeah, he had to be on my list. I've been enjoying him since I was a kid. And,
oh, sure.
I never get tired of watching his films. So
absolutely. No, it's a great pick. My next pick is a guy that unfortunately I never got the chance to meet. He passed away very early. And it's a terribly sad story. This guy died at 52. I knew he died young, but I didn't know what it was till I was looking up. He died at 52 from a heart attack. He was on a TV show called Rat Patrol, which I vaguely remember in reruns. And he got injured, and he never healed properly. And at the age of 52, it gave him a heart attack. But man, this guy had a run in trash cinema, possibly like nobody else. I mean, I'm like, wow, these are like 6 or 7 of my favorites. In fact, of this list, of this like 7 or 8 movies, I own two 35 millimeter theatrical prints of from this list. So starting in 1976, Grizzly, and then he followed that up with Dixie Dynamite, Day of the Animals, The Exterminator, City of the Living Dead from Lucio Fulci, aka Gates of Hell, Graduation Day, Enter the Ninja, Pieces, and his last film was Mortuary. And I'm talking about the great Christopher George, who, man, was just so good. Always chomping on that cigar, had a great voice, just great delivery. Now the guy worked great as a heel or a baby face.
His hair was always perfect, right?
Yes.
He always had that kind of look. He looked like he had it all together, right?
Totally. He was married to Linda Day George, right?
Yep.
Who was a looker, and they were both in Pieces. So it's a shame that he wasn't around longer, because it's like, Jesus, at 52, he died in, whenever, 83, 84.
I was going to say, he died right after all those films then, because he was up there. He was in his 40s when he was doing most of those films. Yeah.
He died in either 83 or 84, but Mortuary was his last movie. So it's like, man, that God knows this guy could have done a ton more trash.
Yeah.
But just a lot of fun.
Cool. That's a great choice. Yeah. He's awesome. He just pops up everywhere. I mean, there was a period where he's in every freaking film. Yeah. All right. As you called it, there's going to be some Universal guys on my list.
I knew you would.
So I'm wearing the shirt, Lon Chaney Jr. And I love Lon Chaney Jr. I mean, just kind of typecast as Larry Talbot, the Wolfman, but he played that character so good. And I always liked him lumbering around as the Mummy for those couple of films. And, of course, his role in Of Mice and Men was great. He was in some kind of shitter movies later on. I mean, he would show up in all these really bad horror films, like in the 50s and early 60s, but he's usually pretty good. Spider Baby, he's really good in Spider Baby. But my favorite film of his, and my favorite role is Lawrence Talbot, obviously, but I think my favorite film with him as that character is Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, because he's pretty much the main character in that whole film. He carries the film, and he had this vulnerability about him, which I really, really like. He could play a tough guy, but there was something about him in that character I think I always really, really liked a lot. And he was even okay as Dracula in Son of Dracula, even though not really a great film, but I thought he was okay in that. But I mean, everything he did I liked. And but again, one of those guys, kind of a sad story, just kind of like Bela Lugosi too. You had these guys who were like, getting up in age, probably shouldn't have been acting anymore, but needed the money, had, substance abuse problems. I mean, Talbot, Chaney was, he obviously was an alcoholic, and he was just taking any role that he would get. And he didn't even have to talk, and he would play like the deaf mute, right? And he would just.
I was gonna say, last summer I went to the drive-in to see Dracula versus Frankenstein, and Lon Chaney is just the drunk mute on stage, on screen. It's like, oh God.
Yeah, he did a lot of those roles, unfortunately. Yeah, but that's why it was good. I think Spider Baby, was his last role, if I remember correctly, and I think he died before that even was released in the theaters. And that actually was probably the best role he had in many, many years. So it was kind of a shame that he went out, that way, and the best role he had, he probably didn't even get to see the finished film. But Lon Chaney Jr. That's my
one of my other favorites, which is complete trash, but I love it, is The Alligator People.
Oh yeah, I have that too. He's great in that.
He's so great. I'll get you, alligator man. So much fun.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, when he would play these drunks on these films, and that he probably was just being him.
I think the best method acting is to do it for real.
Exactly. Yeah. So you watch that and you're like, oh, that's probably him. After a bender, right? He just came onto the set and just
totally
lines. All right, here we go. Yeah.
Funny stuff.
That's a great one. I forgot about that one.
Yep. Oh, that's one of the classics. My next one was on your list earlier. Just could be arguably the icon amongst icon of horror acting, Vincent Price. Like you mentioned, the Dr. Phibes movies, Witchfinder General. I think my personal favorite Vincent Price movie, which I just bought again, Last Man on Earth, which is just so dark and so ahead of his time. but he was also great as Egghead in the Batman TV show.
He was.
So yeah, just the guy for doing horror for decades.
And the Tingler too.
Yes, that's yeah. I got the life-size Tingler in my garage. So yeah, no, that's a
Right?
so many, yeah, so many classics. Theater of Blood, just so many.
Yeah, yeah, he's an icon, a legend.
Yeah.
As is my next guy. I had a really hard time picking out my favorite role for him because like the one is so obvious, and I tried to find like another one that I liked more, and I couldn't do it. Even though he doesn't say a word in it, but Boris Karloff, and of course,
Oh.
Frankenstein.
Yeah.
I think probably one of the greatest, one of the greatest acting roles of a character who doesn't say a word other than grunt and make some noises, right? Of anybody in the history of cinema. But he's done some other fantastic films where he does, talk obviously and have a great like the Black Cat is a fantastic one. Sitting here, I grabbed it before. Where he plays the grave robber. I'm doing a complete blank. I got the olds tonight, Chris.
No, dude, I hear you. I was gonna say
Body Snatchers.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, a great film. He's so good in that because he can play like these menacing roles really good. I also think he's excellent in one that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but not for him. But
I thought he was great in Targets.
Targets is great. The Raven, great Raven, Old Dark House. I mean, just so many films. The Mummy, the original Mummy, he's great in. Bride of Frankenstein, obviously. Just so many.
Right, the Grinch. He did the voice of the Grinch. I mean,
yeah.
Talk about selling that Grinch wouldn't have done, I don't think, a fraction of it if it didn't have that a real actor with that awesome voice behind it.
Very distinct voice, right?
Yeah.
Mario Bava's Black Sabbath, right? He's in that as well. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, just the one, I always talk about him, and you have to bring up like Chaney and Lugosi, and both those two guys, had such rough lives. And then you look at this guy who did everything correct, and he had all the good roles thrown at him. He did his fair share of roles in shitty movies too, but he never fell into those problems like off screen like the other guys.
That's a good point.
And very well respected, and always got offered the great roles. So yeah, he's one of the greats, and we just saw his daughter at Chiller a couple weeks ago.
Yep. Yeah,
always there. Yeah, it's always there.
That's true. My next pick, he's probably maybe a little more well known for his sci-fi stuff, and that probably tugs at my heart a little more. But he was great, and then a few horror classics that he did, like The Legend of Hell House, and he was amazing as Peter Vincent in Fright Night 1 and 2. He also did Class of 1984, and the Planet of the Apes series wouldn't have been what it was without the late great Roddy McDowall. And I just, he's another guy. I'll just watch whatever he's in. I mean, even when when I would come home and my mom would be watching that Goldie Hawn, Kurt Russell movie, Overboard, I would always sit and watch with her just for the Roddy McDowall scene.
Yep. Yeah. The Legend of Hell House is so good.
Oh yeah, just amazing. It's just one of those creepy 70s classics.
Yeah. He's much missed, and just such a. You think of Planet of the Apes, you think Roddy McDowall.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yeah, talk about a guy that wasn't afraid to go under the makeup.
No, didn't care at all.
And another guy from Batman '66. I mean, he was Bookworm.
Well, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, he played that. I think in 2 episodes. I think.
Couple episodes. Yeah.
Yeah. Good choice. All right, my next guy, another icon who's done a million films, and I always. To me, he's the classy guy in this bunch. And no matter what film he's in, he just brings something special too. He's one of those guys that even if the movie's not that good, if he's in it, he's going to bring something special and knock it out of the park. He's got so many amazing roles. And, I thought about, Hound of the Baskervilles. I thought about all sorts of other films. And, most notably, he's worked with Hammer and with Amicus. Talking about Peter Cushing. I ultimately went with his role as Baron Frankenstein in The Curse of Frankenstein because he can play a good guy, he can play the evil guy, and
Absolutely, and he is evil in that.
Yeah, he's really evil. He owned these films, these Frankenstein films. I think he is the ultimate Dr. Frankenstein, and he just plays just a complete evil scumbag in most of them. But he's also really good in Twins of Evil.
Oh, yeah, he's a scumbag in that too.
Scumbag in that too. He's great in The Gorgon. I mean, he's just done so many good films. He's amazing in the Dracula films by Hammer as
Van Helsing.
Helsing, right? So he's amazing. Just so many roles. I mean, so many roles. So he's one of my top guys. So
all right, my number 2, Peter Cushing. I can't add much other than 3 of my schlock favorites that he's in. At the Earth's Core, Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires, and Frankenstein and the Monster from Hell. I mean, I just love all of those, besides all the true classics like Curse of Frankenstein and Horror Dracula. And holy shit, he fucking ruled in Star Wars. I say it all the time. Absolutely. They should have never killed Grand Moff Tarkin in Star Wars. They should have kept him along and killed him later on. Maybe it would have been too much with 3 main villains. I had to bring in the Emperor, but man, every time I watch Star Wars, like, he's the one Imperial that doesn't take any shit from Vader. He's fucking ordering Vader around.
Yeah. And that voice. And that look, right? I mean, he just like commands the screen.
Got all the greatest lines. Evacuate in a moment of triumph. I think you overestimate their chances. I mean, he's just got the greatest look, the greatest voice, the greatest outfit.
Oh yeah.
I just love him in anything. But yeah, so many classics.
And
so many classics with Christopher Lee.
Oh, all together, yeah, they did so many good ones.
I mean, we did a whole show on that.
Yeah, it's just so good. And everything you read about him, no matter who you talk to or who you read an interview with, everybody loved him. He was like, he was such a great guy to work with. And, he went through that horrible time where his, wife
lost his wife. Yeah.
Way. And he was just really having a hard time getting back to work. And he just really, it was a really low point in his life, and it really devastated him because his wife was his best friend. And even though he had all these other friends in the industry, he was very much a family man. And, we almost didn't get him in Star Wars and all those other films because she died like in the early 70s, and he wasn't sure he was ever going to act again. So, great actor.
I read the one of the Peter Cushing biographies, and he was, unlike Christopher Lee, who always got guilted into doing more movies for Hammer. Peter Cushing was like all for it, and it's amazing the list of Hammer movies that Peter Cushing was attached to that didn't happen. Like there was a Loch Ness Monster movie, there was the Vampirella movie. I remember there was going to be a sequel to Twins of Evil. Just all sorts of stuff that unfortunately, because Hammer fell on dire straits, they never got to.
I would have loved to have seen a Loch Ness Monster movie.
Oh, I think that would have been a blast.
Yeah.
And especially in the 70s, that would have been huge. But so would a Vampirella.
Yeah,
would have been massive in the 70s. I mean, that book was huge.
He was doing great.
Yeah.
That's a shame. A shame we did that. Well, Peter Cushing, can't talk about Peter Cushing without talking about the other guy, right?
Yeah.
So Christopher Lee, what can you say? Again, another guy who has done it all. And again, I had a hard time picking a role, and I wanted to obviously pick the most obvious one, but I instead went with another film that I think is an absolute tour de force for him. And he's just larger than life in it and just not a good guy at all. It's another Hammer film, Rasputin the Mad Monk.
I knew you were going to pick, for some reason, I knew you were going to pick that one.
He's so good. He's
so good.
This role is so over the top for him, and nobody could pull it off like him. And you know what? I even like when he plays Fu Manchu.
Yes, absolutely.
Mostly pretty bad.
There's quite a few of those.
Yeah, there's like 5 of them, I think. Yeah. But he's great in the role, right? As ridiculous as it is, you're looking back on, all right, here you got this big, tall, white Englishman, and you're gonna, make him look
make him Chinese. Yeah,
it's just so ridiculous. But he owned the role. But I think this to me, great as one. Great as his Dracula is, and it is, I didn't pick it because, most of the Dracula roles, he doesn't say a fucking thing, right?
Right.
As amazing as he is, but he is like just absolutely owns this movie and owns this role. And he's just, of course, he's playing a historical figure, but he does it with such malevolence and just so good, so good.
Yeah.
So Christopher Lee.
From what I remember, unless I'm mistaken, I think two of his favorite Hammer movies was Rasputin and the Devil Rides Out.
Oh, he's great in The Devil Rides Out.
He's great in that, and playing the baby face in that one.
Yeah, and he, he plays a really good baby face.
He does.
Another role he's really good at in The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where he doesn't play the lead role, but he plays like the lead guy who is the Jekyll Hyde character. His wife is cheating on him with Christopher Lee, so he plays like this great, like kind of like rich stuck-up scumbag character who's messing around with a woman he shouldn't be and all this and he's just so good in the role. And he's good at anything he does. Of course, he like Peter Cushing, later in life, of course he got the roles in the Lord of the Rings, right? And he's did all voiceovers on all these heavy metal records and stuff. So I mean, Christopher Lee had such a long career. I mean, he was still acting like in his 90s, right? Doing stuff.
Oh, unbelievable. And yep, that's actually my number one, Christopher Lee. I always had a special place in my heart because I'm named Christopher Lee. Lee is my middle name. So growing up in the 70s, it was always cool because Christopher Lee was a huge star in the 70s. I mean, besides all the stuff we mentioned, he was a Bond villain and the man with the golden gun. 10 times playing Dracula. I don't know if Paul Naschy has him beat as the most times as a recurring, as the same monster. But man, I'd love to know. If he's not number one, he's got to be number two under Naschy. I mean, I know Naschy made a shit ton of those werewolf movies, but doing and then ending your career doing the Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about going out with a bang. And just a guy who had an unbelievable career, arguably the best out of anybody, because nobody else right before they died did trilogies of massive earth-shattering blockbusters.
Yeah, just amazing. And you mentioned Paul Naschy, could have been on my list too, right?
Oh yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.
One of those guys that nobody knows about, but so many films. Yeah. All right, my number one, probably no surprise to anybody. I just have always had a really soft spot for Bela Lugosi. He's just again another one of those guys that like just a magnet. No matter what movie he's in, you can't take your eyes off him. And he's done some shitty movies, but he is so great in them. And I'm going to go with my favorite film for him. I think his most diabolical role was in The Raven, also with Boris Karloff. And that's right here. I mean, he just plays the most evil prick in that movie. And that's how you play like a mad scientist type of guy. I mean, he's just like every scene he's in, he just chews up the scenery. So good, so good. Of course, his role in Dracula, he plays more of a babyface role in The Black Cat. These are all films he did with Karloff, but he's White Zombie. I almost picked my number one.
So good.
Love White Zombie. The Human Monster is another really diabolical role for him where he's just absolutely amazing. Return of the Vampire, Mark of the Vampire, The Ape Man, Chandu the Magician. I mean, it's so many great roles. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn gorilla.
Yeah, exactly, right. And those horrible Ed Wood movies too.
Yeah, Plan 9 from Outer Space. I mean,
those are kind of
died through production.
Yeah. So, he's been in a million films. A majority of them are probably not all that great. And let's not forget the role of Igor, right, in Frankenstein and subsequent sequels, because he was great in those as well. That might have been his best role ever.
Right.
Igor, So, yeah, it's my number one. Love him. Just
nice.
Love him to death. Yeah. So.
Those are two great lists.
It's a lot of icons right there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of great films, a million of them. So everybody watching, put your 10 favorite male horror icons down in the comments below. I'm sure there's some we forgot.
No doubt.
One that I thought about but then I ultimately said, I'm not going to just on principle. Kane Hodder.
Well, I thought about him too, but I'm like, all right, well, he's great in the Fridays, and the only other thing that I saw him in that I liked was the Hatchet movies.
Yeah, yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know. I mean,
he never says nothing, right? He's just
right.
Kills people. Yeah, yeah. But what else did he do though? Didn't he do some other like roles under makeup or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, he did a bunch of stunt work. I mean, he's got a whole documentary on him now, which is kind of a sad story with all that he went through with getting burned and everything else.
Yeah.
I think it's just called the Kane Hodder story. But yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of another Kane Hodder role that's jumping out at me.
Yeah. Well, those are the main ones, right? But
yeah,
it's good to see him in the Hatchet films because I think he does a great job in those. But that's what he does, right?
Right. I mean, like I thought of Gunnar Hansen because he's amazing in Leatherface, but I'm like, all right, he did one of those other chainsaw movies and that sucked, and he's in Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, that kind of sucks, and he's in My Demon Lover, that kind of sucked. I'm like, yeah, so I'm like, all right, I'm not putting Gunnar Hansen on here. Sorry, Gunnar, even though he passed away.
I think we got all the main guys covered.
Yeah,
but I'm sure there's a few we kind of forgot. So thanks for watching, everybody. This edition of the Monsters Den. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For Chris Allo, I am Pete Pardo. We'll see you guys real soon. Have a good one, everybody.